I guess we have a quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. And just
Do we have internet?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Oh, probably should.
Yep.
All right, now you're good.
okay, he gave me a thumbs up, so I knew we're okay. We have minutes from April 1st, draft minutes. You've had an opportunity to review them.
Yeah, make a motion to accept them.
Mike? Who?
Second.
And Michael to accept, those in favor? Vote members are in favor of minutes being accepted, and we have a draft agenda. With one last minute change today, but if anyone has any new. For a comment.
Yes, please.
Yes.
What? No.
So we can proceed and
is studying how children play. And I've been involved in the design of several playgrounds in other places and outdoor recreation, and my work is connecting children to nature. So this project is really interesting to me, so I'm just happy to sit, listen and learn more.
that's wonderful. The Last Child in the Woods was one of the books that was very influential to me in my last few years as a parks director.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the book that guides my work for sure.
Yep. Wonderful. Well, we're going to be very happy to accept any help you're willing to offer. I did quickly go to one of the websites that Michael referred me to for you as the source, and I know you have a lot to inform us. Yeah. Thank you, Susan. All right. Oh, I did do it backwards. Thank you. Now we're going to approve the minutes. We've already done that. Good. Moving on. The town can speak. We have the Hofstas
Go ahead.
house up first.
Max,
House.
status of asbestos study
Asbestos.
grants and estimates.
So we did receive $2,500 from Lincoln County, so we can do the asbestos studies / abatement, whatever we get left for it. I've already reached out to New Meadows Abatement, who doesn't test anymore, but they gave me 2 recommendations, Icon and AQM. And I had out of courtesy, New Meadows did come to the Hofstas house to take a look inside the building as well with Icon, who he would have just recommended anyways. They said that there would maybe be 40 different places they'd want to test for asbestos. So I have not received an actual number of what that would cost, but that's all I have for the update. I think they only walked the building last Tuesday, and he's a pretty busy guy who goes throughout the whole state. So I should be getting a more concrete estimate soon.
Mostly in the basement?
No, actually, the basement was probably one of the better places. This was just looking at all the flooring that was used, the different wallpapers that have been played throughout or layered throughout the years. He also found it interesting that there was no insulation, but in the attic above the kitchen, there's maybe 3 different layers of wood.
Huh.
So.
Which is not to say that there are 40 locations of asbestos, but there are 40 test sites.
Right.
Yeah. Very good.
So could come back and they're all negative, but
Except for the siding.
except for the siding. Yeah, the siding is the one thing that was like,
Yeah, that's.
we
kind
pretty
of
much said,
known.
we know that that's gonna happen. We want to know the interior asbestos.
Yes, certainly. So, how, what is the next step for procurement?
We're just waiting for the estimates from the two testing. companies.
And that's still on often.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay,
And once that happens, you know, if I get it, say at the end of this week, I assume I'm not waiting to the next Sylvania meeting to do it. I assume we'll just pick one of the two through the select board.
Right.
okay.
I'm just assuming that's how we want to go forward. I'm
Yeah,
looking at
that's-
Julie and Mike and Bob.
If we have to wait, it just makes it further
Yeah.
into the future.
And could you, Max and Julie, just clarify why it's necessary to do a study of how much asbestos is separate from the estimate of how much it would cost to remediate, either for rehab or demolition, which would obviously include an assessment of how much asbestos is in the building?
Well, the study would be seeing what's actually in the building.
Yeah,
And because the original way it would have been done is if I could have just had New Meadows walk in and they say, oh yeah, it'll cost this much to clean it up.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't it would just be based on their professional opinion. I wouldn't be able to give anyone who wants to remediate or tear down the building a document that says this place has been cleaned of all asbestos. I wouldn't be able to give
oh,
that.
okay, it's in order to
Yeah.
produce this document to say it has been cleaned.
Yeah, in most brownfields, I
Okay.
would be doing a phase 1 and phase 2 where they
Okay.
look through everything and they can break it down to the different paints, the different pipes and everything. In this, unfortunately, we don't get that luxury, so this is a fraction of what a phase 2 would have done.
Okay, so this is to protect us going forward and to have the most information going forward
Yes,
for any potential use of the building.
this would be our way of saying, because once the study's done, we would get an estimate.
Yeah.
Or we.
No matter what, we have to remediate
We
it.
have
Yeah,
to
exactly.
get it away. The study would just be us saying, these are all the locations that definitely have asbestos. We'd then take that to New Meadows. New Meadows would give us the estimate to abate it. And then we'd actually know how much it would cost to get rid of all.
We'd probably get a estimate from Lakeside and we'd at
And
least reach out
Lakeside and any others who do it, yeah.
to do abatement, and then they'll make their recommendations, and we can make it so that it's you're either, you know, what's it gonna cost to abate it if we remediate it, and what would it cost to abate it to, if we're going to use it,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
either way,
Mhm.
but then you know what you're.
I sort of
Yeah.
missed a question that somebody asked about authorization to go forward with it. At the select board tomorrow, could we take a vote to award it based on a competitive procurement up to $2,500?
The town manager could do it without. the select
That's
board.
delegated authority under, she can do.
Up to $10,000, I think, under the purchasing. policy.
$2,500. You're thinking of the amendments to the purchasing policy.
okay.
Wow.
You're generous. Well, I thought that's what the number was.
No, that's
And
what
if
the
you.
proposed
if
number is.
Somebody performs a specialty service, you can actually sit down and negotiate.
So I think it should go before the select board. As soon as we get it, it can go before the select board. Because I just think that that's the important thing to do. I don't have that authority. I'd love to have it. Given
I'm
the
just
cost of
talking-
things today.
I'm just talking about the study, not the actual abatement.
Right.
Right,
This is just a
just
study.
a study. You could do that. I mean, you could say just for the best, whoever gets the best price gets it.
Tomorrow, that'd be
Yes.
nice.
Or you should do that.
We could do that tonight.
Yeah.
Or tomorrow.
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow.
Well,
We don't
well,
have
and again, I
forum.
don't have any estimates or numbers, but I'm saying if
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
if I
Right.
happen to get them by the end. of
We
the
can
week,
at least get the testing done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my question. In the interest of moving things forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. That's very helpful to offer that. Just a little Imagineering at the moment, because we are attempting, this is part of a larger process of our diligence to determine the costs for remediation for use or remediation for demolition for the public. Do you have any idea of how this might play out over time? Assessment, putting out our request for proposals for that abatement, the two scopes of work, sewer
Well,
estimate.
I think the
other
scope of work
renovation.
will depend on what they come back with the testing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about the timing to obtain, to go out and get procure a cost estimate, a cost proposal.
Well, I would
for-
say, once we know what we can put in the RFP, we can put that out rather quickly.
You can.
Yeah,
All right. Well,
yeah,
that's,
that shouldn't be an issue.
well, that's encouraging. Yeah. Because we don't know where we're going to be with respect to the
It could
backside
be a
of it.
short or it could be a long list, and then,
Okay.
I mean, as long as we have that report we can attach to the RFP, we're golden. It's just a matter of getting the report in our hand, and then we can put the RFP out.
Okay. Anything else on asbestos? The
We just
sewer.
want it to be very little.
Amen.
One.
And then, well, the other thing is, we can get the price on the remediation. But then Max has to do his magic and get us a grant for the remediation.
Yes.
So that will be the longer wait versus
Mhm.
actually.
Yeah, I'm actually, frankly, personally, less interested in execution than I am in assembling our pro forma for the options for the public to understand where we're headed. Execution is going to happen one way or another eventually, so I'm not very fussy about that. But getting all these numbers assembled this summer is a high priority, which brings us to the sewer estimate. What do we know?
Don't have too much information on that, unfortunately. That I just don't have a number. Right.
Okay. Do we have that town has an accurate as-built as to what was furnished to the Sylvania site?
Correct.
So we do have a good as-built. to give
Well,
somebody.
so. It's not the town, it's the sewer utility. I'll defer to you.
Okay, yes, we have good sewer maps, including computerized sewer maps. The issue is getting from the house down to the sewer.
Right.
Nobody knows what's underground there, whether it's ledge, whether it's clay, sand, who knows, and that affects how much it's gonna cost. Even just something as simple as the Elm Street culvert, we had to do soil borings in order to find out what's there and get a reasonable quote.
Mhm.
That's not easy to do quickly.
Which side of the road does it run on?
It's an asphalt road.
No, but is it go a downhill
It's
side or
downhill.
uphill
There's
side?
there wouldn't be no pump station required.
I'm just wondering where it's running. So it's right on the Sylvania side of the road.
The last
Friendship.
main manhole is right across from, I think, All Play, well,
Yep.
it's Sammy's, yeah.
Yes, Bob.
The water department connected to the Hofs's house up with town water.
Okay.
They should have dug a line.
They dug a line for
trench
water.
For that. So they should have some idea, at least the water department should have some idea what they ran into.
Who would have those records?
Well, I think the water, I can ask Maine Water, but, they'll probably have some idea depending how long, it wasn't that long ago, so they should have decent records.
No, and oddly, I don't.
But
think-
they didn't put in I doubt they put in when they, typically, if you're gonna dig it once, you'd put the sewer line in, but
Was wrong. They didn't do that.
they didn't
And
do that.
I'm unfamiliar with main codes at this point too, whether you can have
The same
there's
trench.
usually a
I don't think you can have-
separation distance between
Yeah,
water mains.
So I don't know if it
sewer
could be
mains.
as easy as can go under the water line, or if it have to go near, I don't,
So how do we go about finding?
I can ask Maine Water to, if they have the as-built for that.
Okay.
They might.
That, so you said it's complicated, but you can't, so the sewage district utility can't ask them or get an estimate of what it would take to drill the holes to figure out what the substrate is to, how do you go about getting an estimate? I guess?
Well, the
Yeah.
first thing would be to find out how you're gonna pay for it.
Right,
Yeah.
well,
Well, I think that's part of the issue is
getting
that
that, so you know.
well, I think we'd have to work with them to see who's putting, well, first of all, who's putting, I don't think it's something that the utility is going to extend, because that's not the town's utility.
Right.
So I don't think that's something you're gonna pay to extend.
We would be searching for money from someone.
Right.
Yes.
Or the town would have to pay it and have a contractor extend it.
Correct.
Because they don't do the extension
Hello,
themselves.
Mr. Lash.
I guess I'm just asking how we go about getting an estimate of who does it and what it would cost. I mean, I guess starting out with what the substrate is and. or
Well, we
maybe-
could at least ask Maine Water that, and then we can get a contractor to give us a price on it.
And we're assuming we're going to the Hofstas house, all the way up to the Hofstas house too. I mean, it could be plan A, plan B, right? Just to the park and or,
This is,
This is just getting into the Hofstas house.
Yeah,
right?
the park already has it. I mean, technically, there's
Yeah.
sewer
Has
water
both?
there.
I
Yep.
thought it just, okay.
so, you know, the geotechnical side of this is the most intimidating because if, as you say, if they can't use an alignment which pre-exists from main water and they're offset by some distance or a different depth or whatever constructability issue, that geotech is something that will have to happen in order to really get a number,
And Maine Water may not have done that work. It could have been a contractor.
right? With questionable records, right? Who
So
knows?
I'll have to ask Maine Water if they know anything about that.
Fascinating. And over that distance, at least one clean out or manhole is necessary, wouldn't it be?
I don't know, the minimum distance, but it's, 50 yards or something like that, every 50 yards. But there's a manhole, it's pretty close.
Okay,
And that would also be something we could have an engineer look at, but again.
Right.
Um,
Pine Tree, Prue, is, those folks are able to do this work.
mhm,
It's within their
that's
bailiwick.
within their scope,
Very good.
not of what we've already, the select boards approved for them, but
Right.
it would be within their scope.
Yeah, Bob.
One other thought occurs to me, Julie, lead vials might have done that work. Since they had a private agreement with the Hofstas house.
Right, but I'm saying they would have gotten a contractor.
That they were,
I will check with Maine
They
Water
might have,
first. If
right.
not, I'll call Lead Vance.
Yeah, very good. Well,
There must have been site plans and things like that that were delivered as part of the sale, correct? To the town?
I don't remember seeing anything about the water main in any of the documents.
At one point in time, I remember, Lead Vance was inquiring as to whether they could discharge their wastewater to the utility district.
Right.
Did that, I think that went nowhere, is that right? We had the ability to accept it, but no way. to
Yeah,
get
but
it.
that was
sewer
from the
system.
Lead Vance site, not from the Hofstas.
yeah, they wanted that
But-
discharge because they would have earned some money.
The,
Hmm.
the water treatment system, the air stripping system is down that end of the property. It's on the far end of the property. I was wondering whether they had done anything like that to get it into the sewer from their stripper.
I
their
can
soil
ask.
vapor recovery system.
I can ask.
Oh, I see, I didn't realize that's how that works. There's an effluent from the air stripping. There's an effluent, a water effluent.
Right.
Yeah.
All the way down
There
here,
is.
so.
I didn't realize that.
Stars around here. Utility line.
Well, it strikes me as sort of a bear of an issue because of potential, it can be a deal breaker. Depending upon what we discover. So we'll anxiously look forward to whatever you can find out from either Lead Vance or.
Yeah,
Maine Water.
I can try. Like I said, my understanding was that everything went to,
That's not
the
that far, then
Sylvania
that would
site.
not be expensive to.
Yeah, we're talking 100 feet. There's a manhole cover right here. Unless it's a fire. Oh, see. Take it back.
I was gonna say, I didn't think, I
That's
thought
the manhole.
that's the manhole cover was right, almost across from Sammy's.
Actually, there's another one
So
right
that's-
here.
That's a substantial.
There's another one right here.
Right, but I think we have to be very careful about assuming that that's accurate because some of that has to do with, doesn't have anything to do with our water, the main water, our water system. It has to do with their wells and their recovery systems.
Yeah. I mean, it was their survey map, so we know, but yeah, what it means, but that was what they labeled
Right,
as a manhole.
Right, my understanding
cat
from
fish.
everything I've ever been told is
Not a sewer.
main water ends at right across from Sammy's.
Yeah.
Because a house further up asked to be connected. And it went from, you'll remember, you were involved with this, Bob. It went from Sammy's up.
That's right. Sammy's was the last.
Sammy's
The end
was
of the
the
line.
last, the end of the line. So although it shows a manhole, but I will find out from main water. They're normally very responsive that way.
So I'm still interested in this water effluent from the air scrubber. So treated water, instead of being discharged at the surface or injected back into the subsurface water, was being discharged into the sanitary district. Did I understand that right?
It never did.
Never did.
It never did get discharged to
Okay.
utility district.
But do we believe that they constructed a discharge?
No,
No,
Just never happened.
I don't think it ever happened.
not on my watch, and that's going back
Went
6
into a
years.
ditch alongside the stripper and then ended up down in the river somewhere.
Okay. Gotcha. That seems a lot more likely an outcome than constructing something over 500 feet or so. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you. I was struggling with that idea. The renovation estimates, just reminding everybody that a public warrant is clearly going to be based on the viability of one is clearly going to be based on an informed public, and the renovation estimate, the sewer and asbestos abatement, they were all of a piece with respect to Hofstas. So path forward on renovation estimates.
So I haven't done anything with this because we don't even know what the remediation issue is at this point.
Mhm.
So I haven't even
Sorry.
begun anything on that.
No, that's not unreasonable. We are really, really.
I just
great
don't
area.
wanna, I don't wanna put the cart before the horse if,
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, we don't know what's gonna come. We're all hopeful what will come back, but I'm not sure what would come back.
As a reminder to us, the approach would be to retain an architect, an engineer. Is that what would likely end up doing?
I would say that that would have to, yes, I would say you would need somebody, a professional to actually look at that and go through it. And again, that all has to be approved by the select board.
Of course, yeah. In order that someone actually can be given sufficient information for that scope of work, produce a house conservation and adaptive reuse budget, we still need to provide some information, we as a committee.
Correct.
So, if we're talking about a kitchen of one scale versus a commercial scale, wall demolition, partition wall demolition, and significant changes. I mean, there's a lot of wiggle room.
There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, amen.
But for me, what I'd like to see at least, and I don't want to slow anything down, but until we actually have the remediation and have that in hand, I don't want to start talking to people about the plan. And select board has to be totally on board and fully supportive of this. And then we also, before we incur any costs, have to take it to the voters. We can't forget that piece. The voters in the end have the, and
Yeah, I'm only talking about generating the renovation estimates. That's all I'm
Okay.
talking about. Just to get
but
that
for
number.
a renovation estimate, I still think we have to have money to put into have somebody do.
It has to be, we have to have the ability to
Have
pay
a
for
number.
it.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand.
And then.
We have to,
out people,
somebody's
right.
going to have to pay for it to get a number. We can't, a third party that's not,
No
has-
freebies, no freebies.
no freebies,
Yeah.
that hasn't looked at it before.
Yeah, Michael?
However, what the architects based their plan on would be the potential uses of the building, and that's the big question mark.
Still a question mark, which we should probably, if the select, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, that we have identified potential town office uses. We also know that these might not be enough to make a compelling case to voters that the house as a whole is worth saving. So what we're hearing is that although the town could use the extra space and it makes sense for particular offices being located there, that still might not be enough to convince the voting public.
Right.
Especially if that route depends more on taxpayer dollars than other routes.
Right.
Other routes being trying to find one or more nonprofits who would get together and help rehabilitate and use the house. And then the town could lease space from the nonprofits. Or in the nonprofit would just play a larger role in fundraising and the future use of the building beyond the town. Not to replace the town's use, but it would be a bigger part of the puzzle.
But I think that
What those
is,
nonprofits are is what the question is and what the conversations need to happen.
right,
Yes. Yeah.
because I think that if the more that can be removed of a burden from the taxpayer. I mean, select board, we have two sitting here. I think that's the concern is what are the taxpayers willing to, what kind of burden are they going to be willing to take on?
How do we go about understanding what other resources, nonprofit grants and so on, soften the blow to the municipality?
Well, we have to meet with nonprofits to see if they're interested
Right.
in being a part of this project, by which I mean, I still think the house can be considered as part of the park overall, so it's not like you would say any nonprofit anywhere in the world, you know, if you want to use this building, come at it. I mean, maybe we would get to that point, but I would say, well, let's maybe think about nonprofits that have to do with, I don't know, social services or health of the community, these general themes. But I don't know, I'm happy to help in
And-
reaching out and talking with these nonprofits, but I think it would be a separate activity, you know, beyond obviously what we can do as a committee in this room.
And I
Yes.
think part of it is too, is that if you look at the model that they used for the fields back when they did it, the Boulderboro Community Foundation,
Mhm.
you were part of that. That had a very strong basis in the community and garnered a lot of support. And they were able to raise the funds for that. So if there was a way to have even like a nonprofit like that group had, that then could go out and raise funds and then combine that with the ability to write grants for that, that might be something that, and then it makes it much easier, that community organization, then it's not funded by taxpayer funds, but it's a community endeavor. And then, like you said, get the nonprofits involved who might need space and then can rent space from it. So I think identifying those nonprofits is something we can do offline.
What was the organization that helped you raise money?
Madobec Valley Community Foundation.
Is that still in existence?
No,
Not really.
Well, its charter is there.
It's charter
Charter's there.
but
Okay,
does it
Doesn't have
really,
an active
what
board.
we're really, the main cog leader, John Blamey, ended up having a stroke, and his leadership really was key.
okay.
Plus, when 2008 hit.
Yeah.
Everything dried up.
So was that a
Yeah.
Waldeboro focused?
Yes.
Yeah.
Organization?
To do
Okay,
the ball fields
okay, so,
and a community center.
and the community
right,
center.
and-
Right.
okay, so, because it takes much longer, obviously, to form a new
Oh, yeah.
nonprofit, like, let's say, hypothetically, Friends of Waldeboro, as opposed to using something that's already in
In
existence, even if
existence.
no board is present, there's a charter
Well,
to use that.
you were a member.
Yep.
Kyle
Vice president.
Sanderson.
Yeah.
Kyle Sanderson. So there's two members that
Okay,
Are still around.
are still around. Jim's still around. He's sitting right here.
And the accountant was Abitonia, wasn't it?
I would just say that it would have to be
Uh,
reconstituted.
Yeah.
No, you have to.
Oh, well, I
Because
guess
the
the other thing
community
is,
center is confusing.
would we be
Because
better
there's
off
maybe
going
another location.
through the Waldeboro Historical Society?
Well, they, I mean,
I just-
Billy was here last
Yeah,
time.
Bill was cool to
that.
he's, I think that they would be in over their head with that. What was the name of the organization again that you had?
Madomic Valley.
Yeah.
Community Foundation.
Yeah.
Let's see, who else was that? Tina? From,
John Blodgett, not John Blodgett, Bill Blodgett. Wasn't it?
Okay, so
Early
I'll
on.
talk to you more then
Sure.
about, maybe this is,
But it's
structure.
originally, but it did a lot more than just it did the fields,
did
fields,
we also supported, different activities for kids.
yeah. They were, it wasn't
Sports.
just for the fields or the
Right.
community center. It was
Yeah.
a broad-based.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm not saying that this is only for the hospices
Yeah.
too, actually, that is saying, well,
But it
this
was
could be useful for other projects.
That's a good idea.
But this might be the moment to
Bring it back.
reconvene
Yeah.
that.
Take a
Jim,
look,
Jim knows the history very well.
if I can remember.
Oh. You do.
It'll come back.
It'll come back.
Because I'll just end it here, that there are a lot of community members here that want to help. You know, are interested in issues around kids, health, education.
Right.
And I think providing these other outlets for people to volunteer or give money, that's not just about the town and taxes, is absolutely crucial for this and other projects.
Oh,
So I think you're right to say that the time then is different than the time now. And maybe this is the right moment to bring this structure back and get new people involved.
It would certainly be worth a try.
Mhm.
I mean, it is a different time and place. And things that,
And that's, I think, what we face is.
yeah,
All these great plans, but it is a different time and place. And what
Very
are
much so.
people willing to,
right.
it's,
You know, I'll just throw this out because I have to leave in about a minute, but I went to one of the walks that Michael led and I was the first one. There were probably 50 people or close to 50 people of all from all over. Some been born in Waldeboro, some moved here 2 weeks ago. You can
Wow.
describe it, but people were really charged. And I feel like it is a question of how it's presented
charged in a good way.
in a good way.
Yeah.
You managed to connect
No,
with
no.
Never know.
You managed to connect with everybody there. I was kind of bored, but
Did Michael
Um,
pass out pills before the?
I think
before the
it was-
walk?
I just had a really positive feeling of people with energy that were looking for ways to get involved. So I feel like we have
Yeah.
an opportunity. If we cast it in maybe in our different than our usual way. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I was really encouraged. So anyway, with that, I have to go.
I think it's a good thing. I'm glad. This charge could go either way. I'm like, no,
Positively charged.
positively charged. We love that. We love
Yeah,
positivity.
no, it was exciting.
Good.
I love the way, and I've been in this town for a long time, but I left feeling really encouraged.
Good.
Good.
Thanks, Janet.
With that.
Take care.
So renovation estimates are going to get cobbled together through a lot of different sources. And the support for those renovation estimates can come from a lot of different places.
Mhm.
And this discussion that I just heard was actually very aspirational, directional towards creating a little bit of community infrastructure
Mhm.
vis-a-vis a nonprofit entity.
Mhm.
I don't have much experience with that sort of thing, but it sure feels like the kind of thing that the town could use to reassure it, community could use to reassure it that these proposals are viable and could have a wonderfully positive outcome. So unless I hear otherwise, I think there's going to be some off-camera activity to look at that. That what I'm here, Michael, I know
Right, in
you're
fact, it
interested.
sounds to me that that's not the direct business of this committee.
Right.
So
Right.
but I believe, I mean, what this committee is telling us is that that might be a good route to investigate. So I'm definitely going to look into that, and want to be a part of that. So, I will do that.
Very, very smart. Those of us who are from away, I'm speaking for myself. There's so much history here in terms of community organization and consequential outcomes, and it's a pleasure to hear that some of these things, the charter still exists. There's a viable place to go and harness some of that. That's just inspiring.
And sometimes not everybody remembers that and takes a while to be kicked in the head by a mule and remember, hey, there is one.
Does anyone think there's any people left or interest left of there apparently was some possible monies of available by donation for when we were talking about the park up by 80 Gray, or instead of 80 Gray, instead of the
There was,
Yeah.
The
BOA.
housing project, the 80 grade.
yeah,
park.
there was,
yeah, is there any of that energy left that anyone knows of? That might be,
there was never, my understanding was there was never actual money.
oh,
I know it was said, but I
Okay.
never had like, yeah, I never heard of any actual proof that it was
Yeah.
there, other than.
We
just-
had, the select board had asked for that and there was never any.
and the people involved, so they're not potential.
The, at least the ones that I know of have moved.
Wait a chapter. Pine Tree, I think we need to see where we stand. with
Yes,
those
I
guys.
talked to Rob last Wednesday and he is hoping to have something by the end of this week.
Cool,
I said, could you please have it by Monday? And he said, no.
that's terrific.
He said, you know, I did wait a year for you guys. I was like, yes, I know. I know. But yeah, he's hopeful by the end of this week we'll have something. As soon as I have something, I will send it out.
Yeah.
I'll send it out even before the meeting, as soon as we have something.
And is
That's
he
great.
treating the whole site kind of like similarly, or is he concentrating and
It was
phase
just a
one,
concrete
phase
pad,
two?
wasn't
It was the yeah, it was the concrete pad.
Okay.
We wanted to get that,
And the
piece.
parking lot, or?
I would say where there's cover,
Impervious.
or the
impervious
areas?
coverage.
Yes.
Okay,
And it was to assess whether the plan that you had drawn up and that we discussed was viable at a basic level.
I think
Right.
he was giving us something we could take to the DEP and say, can we do this? And probably locating of where the courts are and things like that,
it? Capping the site.
and cap it.
And saying the.
So, and dealing with like the elevations,
Needed to even create any of these recreational structures, whatever they
Correct.
may be, yes.
correct?
Is he going to generate any estimates of the cost of this work?
Yes, I believe he was.
Part of the deliverable? Yeah, very good. We're gonna need that.
But at least it'll be nice to actually see something.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Eye
Sure
candy, we need it. Yeah. Oh, speaking of eye candy, though, I just parenthetically, I'm very happy, Julie had mentioned that some of the attractive nuisances and the monitoring materials and air handling stuff has been removed, and I took a bunch of pictures, which I can share with you all. The dog houses, a couple of other locations, a couple of the pipes have been removed. And some fine grain engineering mortar was placed over all those openings into.
And the shed
groundwater.
will be removed.
It is going.
The big shed, they have donated to the town, so the town is going to remove that.
Okay.
And, it will be relocated and repurposed.
The one that's on the elevated platform area, or is that?
The large shed that's tan. I believe it is on the actual foundation.
Okay, yeah, I think I know which one.
Yeah.
One where if you're looking from the road is like the only thing.
It's the only thing
Yeah.
that's there, so
Only vertical.
the electric has to be removed and then we can move it. The Public Works Department will be removing it.
That's terrific. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's nice to see those, so it's those touchable, feelable, playable things, the kind of thing that I always say when I was 13 years old, I would break,
Mhm.
you know. The idea of talking about a rough schedule for grant applications is contingent upon all these other things in play. Do we have any grant activity that we foresee in the next few months on this, from this side of the asbestos abatement assessment?
No, most of the most of the grants that I would be applying for, their deadlines are pretty much the first half of the year.
And we're still working with Lamb.
Yep,
Land,
still
water
working on
conservation.
land water conservation to get that corrected so that next year we can apply for this through land water conservation. But we still would like to get a nice plan put together so that we can do congressional directed spending as well. one of the warrant articles that are gonna happen in June at least is to amend the town's TIF program, which does have some items geared towards improvements to this site. So please vote yes on that.
Okay.
It's Max's.
What do you mean by stiff?
TIF.
Of the,
That's the tax increment financing district. That's just, that takes. I'd have to go through the whole thing, but pretty much it's us taking some tax revenue, and rather than losing subsidies, we instead get to keep that money and put it towards key economic projects in town. Whenever people hear TIF, they think it's a credit enhancement where it goes back to the developer, but we get to keep it and can just put it towards public infrastructure. And some of the uses can go towards Sylvania, like but like the Hofs's house, the abatement and everything for environmental cleanup. Trail work that can happen towards the river, even like parking and this recreation plan, that can be a match for that grant. So that's sort of our way of getting a local match to make improvements to this site. So that it's not a grant, but in June, that would probably be the key thing to pass. Hopefully.
and so all the different appropriations go through the select board as we go, those different pieces?
The different grants or
Yeah,
Where the money goes
Yeah.
to from the TIF.
the TIF is in its own special little budget item. So it's not like it's in the discretionary fund of the public works budget. It's just in its own special.
But it's the select board that votes on where to
Who
spend.
decides where to put the money?
and when?
Oh, well, if it usually would be the select board through a public hearing process, but not a town vote or anything like that.
Michael.
So I do have a running list of grant programs that could help with future activities on the site, but of course, it all depends on what we're creating overall, right? So this is, I think, the quandary here is that, you know, we can't ever even tell the public, well, this could be funded by grants unless you have this sort of full project.
Yep.
Envisioned.
And that's,
And the full project envisioning depends on, well, what's gonna happen in the house or what other nonprofits are involved. But if we can start that conversation and maybe through resurrecting this nonprofit would be a way. I mean, there are tons of organizations out there, as you know, thinking about, you know, community growth and health and history, that would apply directly to this site. And then I know you're the expert, this is your job, about these larger,
expert, yeah.
these larger congressional, you know, like earmarks.
Yeah.
And like the USDA Community Facilities Direct Loan and Grant Program.
Yep.
I mean, is it really idealistic thinking to posit that this whole site, if we had a grand vision for it, could actually be fully funded by an earmark?
Yeah.
If we have a compelling case that this is central to the community, I think we would stand a great chance. But that really means you have to put together this larger vision for the site. It has to be cohesive. It has to speak to the population.
And we also have to be careful with the earmarks because we already got money for
Okay.
the community center with the
Okay.
earmarks.
Yeah, that's why I don't
Yeah.
know, but I just.
So I
have
think
to
we
start
just have to-
Speaking about it for this.
Yeah, the earmark specifically is something that
They're hard to get.
Yes.
they're competitive. I'll say that.
They are.
It's something where we really do need to present a good plan.
And it has to fit what they're looking for each year.
It has to fit with what they're looking for each year. I was told that it was pretty a lot of heated discussion on including recreation type grants for this last round. It's still included, but I can still see that being fought in the appropriations committees, because keep in mind, anything could be submitted for April or whatever, but then throughout the summer, it's going through the appropriations committee, and then the federal government actually has to pass it in
So
October.
like I can tell you for the last 3 rounds,
Yeah.
childcare's been huge.
Right.
Yep.
So a lot of the Ys put in for childcare for the congressionally directed spending, and they were approved. Some of the other projects weren't. So I think that just depends, even if we have a comprehensive plan, it really does depend on what the mood is in Washington of what they
Yeah.
wanna.
Okay, and the last thing I'll say about it is just, there's certainly a version of this project where child recreation and health is absolutely central.
Mhm.
However, it's gonna take, based on everything we've discussed so far, 6+ months to even get to the point of being able to put on paper what a possible idea for an application could look like.
Mhm.
What I'm worried about is that the feeling among the town and the select board might not allow for that space of time. And I can understand why, because this project has been going on for a number of years. And all of a sudden, you know, here I am or someone else at New Horizon Town and says, well, actually, we see this in this new way. Give us 2 years to formulate the plan while everything sits there visually the same and looks like nothing's happened. So then there's this pressure to the town, to the select board to move on it. But we can't move any faster because as we've discussed, it takes this amount of time to put together the plan. So that is the bigger conflict here. I don't know how to reconcile it, other than that.
I think
say
it
that's
gets
the reality.
reconciled, well, it is the reality when you have something new that comes. Government works very slowly, and I'm sorry about that. It's true. It does. It works very slowly. 7 years to get, flashing stop signs at Old Augusta Road. But I think I think what select board has to hear, number one, is that this is the direction that we're going to take. Say it's with a nonprofit organization that can take on some of this responsibility and the fundraising. I'm giving just my personal feel, is that, I think that's a good argument to say, hey, look, this is something that this organization's willing to take on. You two can correct me if I'm wrong. But I do think that you're right. It's hard when there's a new idea and then stuff moves so slowly. So I think that might help.
Is any of the nonprofits, I know you mentioned that the community center was hot on the list for the nonprofits. They have like a comprehensive list of all the main, well, even though the Waldeboro charities, there's the full food pantry, and then there's the clothes place up on the hill there, Coles Hill. Does Karen Ann have she must have a list
well,
of
we
the
have
charities that might be interested in occupying that space.
right. So what happens is typically we find out about space needs when we're talking about, for instance, the community center. We have a list of nonprofits, not all that have expressed interest. I have a list of ones that have essentially expressed interest in having space in Waldeboro. So that I can provide. That's not an issue. But there could be ones we haven't even thought of.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, this, trying to reconstitute a non-existent facility, a non-existent committee, if there's something that really has space needs right now, if that was a driver.
But I think the problem is these aren't organizations that are willing to come in and say, I want that entire space. These are organizations that are looking for an office. Like one portion of it that could even be shared.
Yeah, but again, it's a question of tying all the elements together. And actually, when I was talking to Susan, this is what I started thinking about. It's like, well, what if you design part of the playground, to speak to the work of someone who might use an office in the Hoff's house, right? So it's not simply about renting a room or needing one room, but they actually see that they need to be on site because they're involved in some activity that's happening outside.
Right, and the kid could be outside.
Exactly.
The parents are
Exactly.
inside.
So again, it's about trying to talk with nonprofits to say, do you have a vision? We have a vision. They're both like incoherent, but can we keep talking to see if something arises out of them? Unpredictable.
There is a sentiment among some on the select board that this is like 80 Bright. We sat around with that damn building for how many years? And we eventually tore it down.
Yeah.
So there are some who feel that way and they don't want to do a repeat of that. So
But I
think
think
it's important to keep the ball moving. And to have something that you can grab onto as a potential goal or objective to keep it alive. Mike, you're better at this than I am. I don't have a feeling that house is ready to fall down after hearing people who've been through it. But I'm not the person to judge.
I think that you're.
Bad roof. I mean.
I think you hit it on the head about. I think that is one of the fear, at least that, and that's one of the things that I hear from the public is, we don't want another
80 grand.
80 gray. So I think if there is a plan, and I think if you're taking that burden off the taxpayer and saying, we're going to fundraise, we're going to raise this money through grants, it becomes a much more palatable work for people to grasp and say, okay, so this isn't going to be where we invest money into 80 gray and then it gets torn down in the end. Because I think that was part of when they did all the asbestos abatement,
$250,000 into the roof of that high school.
and then it went away. So I think that's a major part of select board, and not only just select board, but even when the public has something to say, is I just don't want it to be another 80 gray. And I think that's coming from people who lived it and were around it. So
There is a matter of scale, though. I mean, that house is, 5% of the size of the AD grade school.
but that's, I think, how people are envisioning it. So I think if it's something that then can be explained to the general public, is we're going to take this on potentially as a nonprofit, and grant funding and fundraising will be supporting this. That becomes a much different story than the town investing money in it. And I think that's,
Well, my original thought was to try and save the house by using your and Conrad's funds to stabilize the house, to get the roof fixed and put the sewer in. That was my thought. No town expenditure at all, just so that it was developable, number one, and number two, it wasn't gonna fall down. That was where I was going. And
And we were supportive of that.
right. But I think the problem becomes what happens then.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's,
I mean, it's also a risk for us too.
it's a
that's
risk.
what I mean.
It's a risk.
Risk was
Right,
yours.
and then what happens then? And right, and you don't want risk on anybody's part, either the town's or on the donor's part. We don't want that. So I think if we can approach this in a different way and explain to the public what the intent is, I think you'll get more buy-in. You'll get more people supporting it, like,
Right.
the energy and what did she call it? That I was like,
Charge.
charge, the charge, I think the charge will be more positive than saying, we're gonna expend taxpayer money to do this. I mean, we know for the remediation, that has to be done no matter what we do. But I think beyond that, I think it would be much more palatable for people who are concerned it becomes an 80 gray, and for the taxpayers.
Yes.
And that kind of indicates what your timeline is. Because once the remediation is completed,
Mhm.
it's done. That's a real pivotal moment
But
Or,
Decision.
for coming up with an alternative plan.
right.
select board also has to realize that when we get the testing back, we still then gotta fund the remediation.
That's
So
right.
as much as everybody may want to see something happen with the building, even if it is, even if the decision were to demolish it, we still then have to fund
Yeah.
through a grant, the remediation to even, so there's time. What I'm saying is there's time in all of this.
And those 40 items, it's almost like a scale, like how, it's gonna give us pretty good information pretty quick, like
Right.
how much energy, if it is all 40 that have to be dealt with, then.
Well, I don't think it'll be all 40, but you never know. We're knocking on wood.
Yeah.
This is wood.
At the end of the day,
For being a problem, but wow,
at the end of
It
the
can
day,
be.
yeah, interesting.
a radically adapted conservative building, and I was privileged to do one when I worked for the Farm Home Administration. A radically adapted, reused historic structure has more value than a new construction. It has much more value. It has all other values implicit in the structure itself, its location, history, context. And in our case, the utility of it being an ancillary structure to a park. I mean, we have a lot to try to sell here, but there's a lot to sell. And I'm a little less anxious about the remediation costs for the simple reason that I know that the monster, the 600-pound gorilla, which is the cementitious siding, is very likely stabilized and can be encapsulated if we adapt and reuse the building. It's so much more expensive to remove it and then to try to restore the unknown siding condition covered with lead paint, on and it just goes on and on. I'm still optimistic about the outcome with that building. I see it. But I do hear an aspirational approach here, which is to try and harness some connection to nonprofits who would use the facility along with us as an adjunct to the park, and children recreating in a relatively nice natural landscape, dependent in some way on that building. There are lots of conditions in certain parks where there are adaptive recreational equipment for handicapped children to have access, trails that are otherwise completely inaccessible to them. And that equipment is loaned out to those families when they arrive with children. So seeing that kind of activity occur at that building, and then its transition into being in a trail they would never otherwise be able to be in. Some of these adaptive trail push carts, adaptive trail equipment that children can operate with levers and with assistance. So these things are $4,000 or $5,000 and more. People aren't going to own that just to take a walk in a park. But I mean, that's one kind of use that this building could serve if it's an adjunct to the park itself. And maybe a nonprofit could be administering that kind of activity rather than our Marcus and Recreation.
Are you creating that list of nonprofits?
Yes.
Okay. Try the local ones first too.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, I've been talking with Julie about it and others.
And I mean,
Find out what the conversations are.
right, because there are things that, once we opened up, Max and I opened up the community center conversation. There was a whole, like I said, at the last meeting, there was a whole new barrage of requests that were not even envisioned when we talked about the community center. I can tell you that childcare wasn't even a conversation in 2019 when we talked about the community center. I mean, we talked about, obviously, we always had Head Start there, but yeah, there's a lot more conversation about other nonprofits than we had when we started back in 2019, the entire discussion. And I imagine
People are more accepting of supported childcare, not as a private businesses. Do you think that's part of the environment?
so I think that if you were to talk to the childcare professionals, and what they're seeing in Lincoln County is there's a definite need for childcare, subsidized or not. That there's waiting lists, and that's a barrier to people working, and a barrier to our economy. Programming for children is huge, even, which is what the argument Marcus would make of why he needs a gym, is because that's one of the biggest uses when you're trying to do child programming with after school care or before school. I mean, it opens up a lot. So those are the types of conversations we have to have. But, we used to have an office for New Hope. Used to have an office in town. They no longer have an office in town. Is that an organization that might want to come back? And so it was just a lot different conversation that started to happen surrounding the community center than what it originally started out as many, many years ago. And then even from many, many years ago to 2019, the conversation was a little bit different. But now from 2019 to 2024, to me, it has changed. And that's why we want to have, more conversation about that. And the Recreation Committee has been very open about that. And we're excited to see what that site, when we're finally actually have the agreement in place, and what that site on Depot Street will look like. because that's an exciting time. We can't put the community center on Sylvania because of the restrictions. So obviously it has to stay at this site. But we're excited.
Trails. I don't actually know who is supposed to be reporting about trails, but Michael,
How about
and
you?
Barbara, and I had a lovely walk with Morgan Price of Midcoast. And well, I learned a great deal with Janet as well. I learned a great deal about how those folks look at a trail. And you know, separate from my sort of engineering and barrier-free look at trails. I think it was very useful to us. Will Pratt has 50 or 60 2-foot stakes he's made for us. And I'm going to paint them up and install a station every 50 feet on the approximately 2,500 foot alignment that we came up with before, with a small spur through the white pine weevil pine trees. And if we set these stations up off to one side or the other of the limits of disturbance of a path, and we can use that for subsequent surveys. And more importantly, anybody who goes there to see what we're talking about, talk about an accessible trail, they'll have a station marker, a semi-permanent station marker every 50 feet. That's something I'd like to try and get finished this week.
Are you
Because
numbering them, Carl?
what's that?
Are you numbering them?
I hadn't thought of that, but we can GPS them. So the idea here being that people can walk the barrier-free proposal. And the reason you don't want to paint trees and so on, generally you want to flag things, because if you don't like what you've done, now you've got a painted tree to deal with. So I'd like to stake or flag something. But I'd like to get that done this week because I'm disappearing Saturday for 2 weeks. And it would be nice if that alignment was out there for people to see for themselves.
So this is to encourage people just to walk through,
See for themselves what we're talking about.
feels accessible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No tree clearing, no
Yeah.
effort here, just have station markers every 50 feet, bright blue stakes. Give people a sense of what we're talking about.
Right.
And I think Morgan is, what is Morgan's deliverable? What's she gonna do for us again for next month? Forgotten.
I don't know.
She was gonna put her,
She did put some flags out, I noticed, on some trees and branches.
yeah, but she was also gonna deliver a plan that will, you know, put
G-
coordinates of the
GPS.
trail markers.
We've had a
It might
computer
be-
issue, so she was probably gonna be here online and just didn't.
I think she said she wouldn't be available
Oh, okay.
until next month.
Until next,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're looking for something in June. And we'll follow up with her. New business. Forum readiness. And our requirements and our diligence and the town warrant in November.
Well, it sounds like we just discussed all of that.
I think so. I'm only troubled by the lack of a clear path for the darn sewer. That troubles me because if main water, turns up nothing, if there is no geotech information available, we're really just stuck with trying to come up with an estimate or even a constructability question. That's the one that has me more trouble than anything.
That's gonna go in the road, and the state constructed that road. It's a state road. I mean, they gotta have some sort of record plans or whatever for that
They
section of the
wouldn't have
highway.
taken core samples, I don't think, between the end of that sewer and the Hofs's house, though. I mean, what.
But they would
short of having core samples, you're
know
not
whether
gonna
it
know
was,
what's under there.
whether it was ledge or whether it was glacial till or whatever it was that they were building on. They would have
Maybe
to have
what-
some inkling.
Maybe what the utility district does is put a worst case scenario.
If the water company, and that was done within recent memory, I'm talking within the last 25 years, they
Yeah.
put that water line in. Maine Water will have it.
I'm
If
gonna
they
say-
put it in. I've heard from the daughter of the former owner that Sylvania put it in. They actually ran the line from the Sylvania property, not along the road,
Oh, okay.
but it's from the Sylvania property to the house. And that's how they got their water. That's the memory.
Well, then we know then that maybe it's easy digging. Cause
They obviously did it.
they obviously did it. I'm just saying it's,
Yeah. That was part of the deal. Give us water, we'll sell you the house. After we die, you can have it.
okay. I will, like I said, I'll ask Maine Water. They had to have a separate service.
A meter or some kind.
They had to have something.
I think they
Are there any exceptions in the covenants about excavation in the right of way?
Right away for the utilities or?
The
Along the
town,
road.
the.
Well, like out by the
there's a
road.
road right of way.
Yeah, I would not, I don't think there's an issue there.
But no, I mean, that's not what I'm asking. What if the state said we really need to put in fiber, underground fiber or something like that in
I think
in the right of way?
it's the right of way. I think that's a
Do-
little different.
Does the state retain the right to do any earthwork on the Sylvania property?
Well, I think that I think you'd have to figure out where the right of way is for that.
I don't even think the right of way.
Well, the right of way extends a certain distance from the center line of the road
Right.
onto the non-paved area.
Right, and if I'm going based on at least the map that Barbara has in front of her, and if that's the accurate map, I mean,
Typical.
the remediated restricted area that we're talking about is very far away from
Yeah.
the right of way. Like it's pretty
Beyond those
much,
trees, yeah.
it's from that very front parking
I'm
lot.
assuming they're be in front of the trees is where they'd run it.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The, yeah. That's
which is probably Phil,
yeah, the restricted area doesn't go anywhere close to that.
yeah. It's probably not ledge, it's probably Phil there.
I don't know.
There's hydrant there.
And I,
We need Superman with X-ray vision.
I thought,
Well, hopefully Maine Water actually has something useful.
I'm gonna ask, I'll,
Yeah.
like I said, I can ask them, I'll send out an email
there.
tomorrow and I'll ask our friends at Maine Water. They're very responsive.
Wonderful. Well, we had a wonderful experience. I went at 4 o'clock to listen to Michael's thematic conducted sense of place and time walk through Sylvania. A completely different experience from what I expected. It was much more deeply informative about the broad scale of our history than I expected. And I was delighted. We both had a wonderful time, Sherry and I.
Thank you.
So you want to tell us about the day?
I thought it was very extremely successful. We had almost 40 people in the morning and about 20 people in the afternoon. Only half of them I recognized, so a lot of people who are not part of these conversations showed up. I saw all sorts of people, new people, old people. There was some people who showed up that I told Bill Maxwell showed up, and he was like shocked that they came out for this. Some old town people. And the feedback was positive all around. I posted again on Facebook today to say that well, to thank everyone who attended, but also that I am willing and interested to continue holding the walk, to do it for anybody who still wants to do it, because I think it's just a really great opportunity to begin this larger question about the history and future use of the site. And also could be a model of a walk that we could do elsewhere in town. And also feeds into the questions of the New Origins Committee, which I mentioned at the end of the walk. So I put a lot of work into it. So I kind of want to keep offering it, and I'm gladly to, in order to just make people aware of the potential.
I want to say two things. One is I see a Waldoboro Day event in the.
Oh,
hallway.
that's right, yeah.
There you are.
And the second is, are you familiar with Mark Bisco?
Yes, I do know, I have been, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
he gave tours,
Yeah, walking tours.
and I'll tell you, 40 people never showed up. to tours. You might be lucky to have 5 or 10,
Yeah,
but my guess is you're probably gonna get a little more fish in the net with what you're doing. So,
And it made me think, well, that wonderful information was like, if only we could come up with a name for this whole concept of the place name rather than Sylvania. It goes so far. It'd be a little bit more exciting to kind of wrap our head
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
Lead Vance doesn't work either.
Wow.
Right, yeah,
There's gotta be something in the history that.
yeah, I've been thinking about it, right,
Like Skidomfa, we'll have to come up with one of those names.
Oh.
But you know, what might be fun, and we say this every time we have to like think of a name for something, but involving the kids in school would be something great.
right,
That's a great idea.
yeah.
Can I add something? You've gotten a lot of positive feedback, from people who don't like to post, but they should message me. So one of two of the comments, one of them was posted, I think, that said you should do a brochure or something to go with it. Mixed feelings from me on that, just because of the paper. But the other thing was, one of the reasons I didn't go because I had burst pipes and I had meant to go, but I also wonder a bit whether I'd make it back up.
Yeah.
In the end. So one of my older friends said, are you gonna record one of these or
Right.
something to make it
That might be a great
accessible
idea.
for other
Nice idea.
people? And I
Yeah.
thought that would be a great idea if you're willing.
another approach, have you ever been to the History of Music Museum in Phoenix?
No,
You walk in front of a display. It automatically turns on. You don't have to have a thing in your hand. Just walk to where it is and bam. You've got it right there.
what is it?
Your iPhone. All I'm suggesting is, Becca talked about paper. I thought,
Yeah, I'm
wow,
with Jim
there's
on
an
this one.
alternative to paper. I mean. you
Yeah,
can,
no, of course,
you
of
know,
course, there's all sorts of future
Yeah, there
versions
are.
of this to,
It's not, Mike.
being on, doing it by yourself through your phone. And I could record, the segments, because I just moved from spot to spot and spoke.
Yep.
Porter and May were there from Cakewood, and we were talking about how, it's a very it's an intimate experience, although I was also kind of speaking loudly because we were outside with a large group. So, is there a way to give people earpieces and me speak into a mic?
The amphitheater
whisper?
that should be there going down the hill.
Yeah,
It'll have wonderful acoustics.
right.
I didn't get my electric car racetrack, but I hopefully at some point, maybe the amphitheater.
But yes, these are all on point. These
And
are
with
all.
fiber optic coming to the.
Yes, that's true. Yes. No, these are all, on point for how I was imagining it. And I'll seriously consider the video version, because actually, Norma Dodge, who grew up in the Hofstas house, I've been in contact with. I've spoken to her on the phone numerous times, and
knows about the water line.
I thought it's that probably who said that to you. And she said she would have liked to come, but she's having mobility issues. Could you send me some videos? So I actually had Conrad do some small clips that I'll send her, but that's definitely doable.
I had a 4 and 6-year-old and I thought I would spare you having screaming children running around for it, but.
I hope you do it again soon. I had to be in Boston. I
Yeah,
couldn't
no,
go,
I know.
so.
So now you can have a children's one too.
Yes, that would be, that'll be great. But yeah, I didn't think anybody would appreciate the 4 and 6-year-old
You have
high
no
energy
idea what
boys.
you've done.
Just approaching like the Walboro Women's Club or the Walboro
Oh,
Garden
to
Club.
offer to organizations. Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. Good idea.
That's- Great, thank you all.
Those ladies are energetic.
They are.
That's also a good way to get backing for any nonprofit, is to reach out and get some of these groups to go.
Yeah,
Mm.
right.
They're
That
wonderful.
experience.
They do so much for the town.
The scholarships, oh my God.
Oh, their scholarships. Well,
Yeah.
she's always in and out of the office, so Betty Studley. Nobody can say no to Betty.
I was at Montpelier for the 200th anniversary of the Western acquisition of Louisiana Purchase. And the docent could certainly have taken lessons from Michael. Believe me, you keep your attention and hang on every word. It's a gift. It is.
It helps being
Sure.
very tall too.
Oh, come on, pardon.
It's just, it's obviously had some performance
No, I-
experience.
Well, it's so that we can quit in a timely fashion. Any comments from the committee? And we can look at the next meeting.
Just one. And
Yes.
it's really an advertisement. Friday at 4:30 in this room. There will be a transfer station committee
You will
meeting.
never get that many people.
Julie has very kindly consented to allow the fellows who work at the station to come here and share their
They're
experience.
getting paid. They're gonna be thrilled.
Well,
Friday, when?
This.
4:30.
4:30. Yeah.
Wait, this Thursday, or this Friday? I thought there was one last week.
It's just gonna
We
keep,
just had one. We
it's
wanted-
Groundhog Day.
Want to do
We're
it?
gonna get the feedback that we developed
Like
at that last meeting and have a
I hear
conversation.
it was pretty lively.
It was very lively.
It-
I kept it very calm, though. I
You
thought I
did
did a decent
You did a
job of,
great job. If you hadn't been there, it would have been a lot different.
yeah.
Sorry, you're gonna mediate again.
Had I known, I would not have made plans, but I have plans I cannot get out of next on Friday.
Bob, is it in this next vote? Is there
No.
anything about it? No.
Nothing is in the next vote, and I don't think it'll be in November now either.
I doubt it.
Yeah, it
I think
seems
we need to
very
try to
touchy.
get back to where we were pre-COVID. If we could do that, we will have done a lot.
I think I think they're gonna concentrate on educating folks about the importance of recycling. It's been interesting to hear the feedback since, so. Anyway, are we adjourning?
I believe we are until we have a tentative date of June 3rd for the next meeting, if that's agreeable to everybody.
In the calendar.
And if you want one earlier after we get the plans, you might want to do that too.
I'm gonna be down there Friday. Bothering you. Oh, you're not
Okay,
in on
thank you.
Friday.
I'm not in on Friday.